the great fundamental issue now before our people can be stated.
E is equal mc square, in which energy is not equal to mass.
1905. Japan and Russia were at war. The first New York subway opened. And the population of Arizona's former territorial capital, a place called Prescott, had seen its population boom to over 3,000 residents. Many American towns of the day had a benevolent and protective Order of the Elks organization, and Prescott was no exception. With land recently purchased on East Gurley Street, BPOE 330 considered building their own theater as an addition to their planned lodge next door. The cost was estimated at $15,000. Since the town's only opera house, the Dakey, had been demolished, there was strong community support.
Prescott should have a good opera house, and there never was a good chance before to have one for the money that this will cost. And if this chance is lost, it will be a good long time before another such opportunity is offered. Prescott Daily Miner.
That chance would not be lost. Many of Prescott's residents had migrated from the east and were starved for top-notch entertainment. The necessary funds were raised, and on April 3, 1904, with a buzzing crowd in attendance, workers set the first granite cornerstone. Less than a year later, construction was complete.
The pier of that theater is not found east of San Francisco until the great cities of the Mississippi Valley are reached. And even there, our theater is outclassed only as to size. For our theater is about as perfect as the handiwork of man generally gets to be. The Weekly Courier.
The new Elks Opera House grand opening was held on Monday, February 20th, 1905. Famed stage actress Florence Roberts starred that night in a play titled Marta of the Lowlands. Opera boxes sold for $20 and general admission seats $2.50.
The opening of the Elks Theater last night was a brilliant social event.
It wasn't long before the magic of celluloid had captured the public's fancy. In 1916, the Elks ran a new silent film that was destined to become a masterpiece, Birth of a Nation. By the end of the Roaring '20s, downtown Prescott was in full swing with all the trappings of a modern town. At the Elks Theater, talkies were in, and movies had become a mainstay.
Goodbye. Don't cry.
Until the final screening of Steven Spielberg's action-adventure hit Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1982. During the Elks' long run as a movie house, the theater had undergone many changes. The entrance and marquee were altered to present a more modern appearance. The opera boxes and their intricate ornamental details were removed to accommodate widescreen projection. Elaborate stenciling along the balcony surrounds had vanished. Even the iconic copper elk statue atop the roof was eventually relocated to a new home. Following the retirement of the Elks' longtime manager in 1980, the aging theater's operation would be marked by 20 years of instability. Finally, in 2001, the city of Prescott purchased the Elks in an effort to ensure its survival and continued use by the community. A year later, the Elks Opera House Foundation was organized. Their mission, restore the theater to its 1905 grandeur. With their fundraising efforts, support from City Hall, and a $1.2 million gift from the James Family Trust, the Foundation's mission was deemed possible. In July 2009, 104 years after Florence Roberts hit her mark on the Elks stage, the old theater hosted its final show. A dazzling multimedia performance by local musician Brian Matuski. Then, the Elks Opera House went dark. And the restoration process began. The restoration team was led by Bill Otwell and his Prescott-based architectural firm. They were joined by Haley Construction, another local company, and their team of craftsmen and engineers.
Thinking of it as an opera house, maybe I could be considered the conductor of the orchestra. And we have all these incredible players, and it's our job to make all the pieces fit.
The restoration teams embarked upon what would prove to be an archaeological dig into the theater's past, with leads provided by Charlotte Hall Museum's collection of rare historic photographs.
Took some of the better ones and blew them up to where we could get more detail out of it, and then proceeded to do a demolition phase where we removed all the elements that had been added over the years and found that some of the original cast plaster moldings were still in pieces on the floor. They didn't clean them all up when they tore them off, fortunately. So we had a few to go by.
Otwell then contracted with Evergreen Architectural Arts, nationally renowned forensic and restoration specialists. Their impressive portfolio featured work in many historic theaters around the country.
And then they spent a week analyzing everything that we found. And then they went down through the multiple layers of paint and canvas and discovered the exact shapes and sizes and did stencil patterns of the original stenciling where we did find it intact. Sherry and Lewis with CSI were able to duplicate all that stenciling. It's an exact match to the original.
Since the hand-tinted prints of the theater's interior were not color accurate, Evergreen performed forensic work on the various house paint schemes in order to determine the original colors.
And they did an actual chemical analysis of the colors. So not my old technique of using the fan deck and trying to say, oh, that's green or that's blue. They actually chemically analyzed them. So the colors you see here in this theater are exactly the original colors.
Though Otwell had overcome many of the project's daunting architectural and structural hurdles, there was one challenge in particular that had him concerned.
Actually, my biggest fear in this whole project was that the elk heads would not turn out right. I just couldn't imagine replicating the sculptural quality of those elk heads. Evergreen showed up with their molds and actually cast the elk heads right here on this stage. And they're absolutely perfect.
One of the theater's most visible interior details is the ceiling with its press-molded tin tiles. Time and roof leaks had taken their toll. As work began, it was quickly discovered that a contractor's version of Pandora's box had been opened.
Well, when we first looked at it, we thought that there was a lot of tiles that needed to be replaced and touched up, and that was the original game plan. Once we examined them more closely and we got up on some lifts and we started to remove a couple of tiles, it was evident that they were just really in bad shape, that it was going to be a horrendous job. So we kind of backpedaled a little on that one because that was not what we were expecting.
Haley's crews suggested the unimaginable. Remove every ceiling tile, staged from a 26-foot platform.
And they went through, piece by piece, every ceiling tile in the entire house.
Restoration took place in a makeshift repair shop in the theater's basement, where each tile was meticulously refurbished.
Probably almost 50% of the ribs behind this arched ceiling were replaced, and then each tile was put back up. So it was quite a process.
There were many prize projects completed during the restoration, including the theater's exterior. In his research, Bill Otwell discovered that the 1905 building did not have a marquee.
There was just an entablature over the doorway, and a sign that actually hung out that said Elks. And if you read it from the plaza, it said Elks. If you saw it from Marina Street, it said Elks backwards.
Historians believe the marquee was added during a 1917 remodel. In 1974, both the marquee and granite columns flanking the entrance were entombed under tons of wood siding, plaster, and schist rock. Prior to demolition, neither Otwell nor Haley knew exactly what they would discover.
We stripped the marquee that surrounded what I will call the original marquee, and it was a blast.
So we removed a total of about 2 tons of material off of that marquee that's just suspended by these 2 steel rods.
And it was like opening a package.
So now it's back to its original configuration, which isn't original to 1905, but it's early enough that it's historic.
Well, I think the thing that was really challenging for us was that initially so much of the ornamentation was not going to be included in the project, like so many things, because there wasn't budget for it. A large percentage, actually, of the ornamentation. They cross-referenced it to catalogs and were able to buy it from architectural suppliers instead of making it from scratch. It saved enough money to where it allowed us to actually do that ornamentation, do the marquee, and the amazing thing was that it started a spiral. And the community, everybody got on board. Everybody worked together, and it was a process of saving money and raising money, and through that effort, the whole thing happened.
Now, even more than ever, I think some people wonder why we spend so much money on historic preservation, and it's a part of our culture, it's history. It's also a very sustainable thing to do. Whenever you save one of these buildings and put it back into service versus tearing it down and building a brand new theater, the amount of energy that's saved, the embodied energy that's in this building is enormous.
By construction's end, the Elks was structurally sound with modern safety features, restored lobbies, and a state-of-the-art audio-visual system. The fly loft, designed for moving set backgrounds in and out, had been fully restored and is one of only 2 operating in Arizona. The original proscenium arch was created in plaster relief. Though the reproduction appears to be a replica of the original, it is actually a trompe-l'oeil rendering, an artist's technique for making objects appear as if they're 3-dimensional. The first house seats were produced by American Seating, the same company that replicated the chairs on the main floor and restored the 1920s originals in the balcony. The theater wouldn't have been the same without legendary Bill the Elk. He too was overhauled and returned to his ancestral home atop the roof, where he'll continue his unwavering gaze over downtown Prescott.
We have an elegant and beautiful restored opera house to present to the world, and I believe the world is coming. We intend, as we did originally when we wrote the Articles of Incorporation for this nonprofit foundation, to work with the owners of the building and purchase the building as soon as possible. And that means another $2 to $3 million fundraising project, but no one is quailing, no one is saying, oh, we've done enough. Everyone's ready to roll.
On July 24, 2010, the Elks Opera House opened as a restored masterpiece. once again worthy of the praise, our theater is about as perfect as man's handiwork generally gets to be.